for today that we're going to talk about is John chapter 1, verses 6 through 8 and 19 through 28. And this is what it says. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. This is the testimony given by John, when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny it, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." They said to them, "Who are you? Let us have an answer for those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" He said, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord,' as the prophet Isaiah said." Now they had been sent from the Pharisees. They asked him, "Why then are you baptizing if you are neither the Messiah nor Elijah nor the prophet?" John answered them, "I baptize with water. Among you stands one whom you do not know, the one who is coming after me. I am not worthy to untie the thong of his sandal." And this took place in Bethany across the Jordan where John was baptizing. All right, well, once again, good morning. Thank you for being here today. Hope you all had a great week. This Bible verse today talks about two specific people. One is John the Baptist, and one is Jesus. And those are actually two really, really big, significant people in the New Testament. But even more specific, this Bible verse describes the purpose of John, why he was actually sent, and, just as importantly, the difference between him and Jesus. So let's go to our first slide. This is what it says. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. So John was actually sent by God for a very specific reason, and it was to testify about this light that was coming. And when the Bible uses the word testify, it's exactly the way we mean it today. If you get called in a court to testify to something, what are you saying? "This is my opinion. I think this is the best restaurant in town." No, what does it mean? This is a fact. This is what I know to be true. I swear to this. This is what I know. All right? So it's very specific. Those aren't haphazard words that they threw in there. And again, it means the same today as it did 2,000 years ago when they wrote this. So John is set to testify to the world about something that he not only believed, but to him was an absolute fact. And it says his testimony, the stuff he was going to say, was meant to do something. There's a reason he was saying it. It says it was supposed to bring others to this light, so they would come and believe in this man Jesus as well. Now it gets really cool. Interesting, it says, now listen, John was not the light. I mean, that's pretty clear, right? He's not the Messiah. He's not it. It's not him. Jesus and John are completely separate. Through and through. His job and title is very clear. Just give your testimony. Just tell what you believe. John was not sent to be a motivational speaker or to write lots of books. Get a couple good book deals because you can make a lot of money doing that, even today, right? He wasn't sent to start and make a big church and have his name on the side of it. It's very popular today. He was simply here to testify. He was not the light. It wasn't about him. Now I'm going to show you a slide that comes up next. This is part of the problem with the prosperity movement today. Let's look at that. Where does the light appear to be emanating from? Do you think that's on accident? Who is the light in this slide? Where's the light coming from? This particular guy who writes lots of books that make a ton of money. He is not the light. John the Baptist was not the light. I am not the light. None of us here are. We all have a very specific purpose. Now, John the Baptist carried this message proudly. And if you look at your Bible, you'll see that one day he pays with his life. He tells the king that adultery is wrong and it is not okay to marry your brother if you can't do it. So what's the king do? Removes his head for him. Now, here in the United States, we're supposedly the richest country in the world, right? Well, we got it pretty nice. If you ever travel to a third world country, you see that we do actually have things pretty well. But now, if you think of some of the more dark places in the world, there's a lot of trouble. Think of Iraq, Afghanistan. Think of the stuff that ISIS does. Think of North Korea, where they have prison camps. You can be tortured and killed for your belief. Now think about that for a minute. What kind of hope would you have in a North Korean prison camp? What kind of light would there be? Would you have any hope of ever getting out? But even here in the United States, because we don't have it like that, believe it or not, we still experience that same level of hopelessness, where there's no light, depression, feeling lost. True darkness. I've worked in the emergency room for years. I've met people who've had a bank account with numbers that I can't, they're crazy, who have no light in this world, who are lost, who choose death over one more day because they have nothing. Now, for a moment, I want you to pause, and this is very serious. I want you to think about the worst time in your life, the saddest thing you've ever been through. Maybe you lost a spouse. Maybe you had a bad diagnosis. You were looking down your own mortality. Maybe you struggled with depression. Maybe you tried to take your own life. Struggled with addiction. Pause in your mind. I'm absolutely serious. I want you to go there. Even with all the people around you, you can still feel absolutely alone. You have nothing. Now, while you're there in your mind, what if I told you there is no God? This is fake. This is not real. You guys are fools. You just paid me a lot of money to stand up here and tell some funny story. There is no God. There's a lot of contradictions in the Bible. You can't prove any of that's true. What if all the emotions that you've ever felt in your life, picture a spouse, the person sitting next to you, those are just chemical reactions in your brain. No, that's not love. Love does not actually exist. What happens when you die? Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Your body simply decays, turns to dust, and one day, even the memory of you will fade away within a couple of generations. That's it. That's all that happens. Think about this. Everything you've ever done in your life, you've worked hard for, won't matter at all. Because when you die, it's done. How does that feel? There's no hope, there's no real light in this world. Now, we're in the United States. Imagine being in a North Korean prison camp, or being in a cage by ISIS, knowing your days are coming to an end. Does your heart tell you all that stuff is true that I just said? What if I told you that I know for a fact when I look at my kids, my wife, I know what love is. I've felt it. I've seen it. Now, I want to picture in your mind for a second. John was sent to testify to the light. If there really was a Messiah, what would the Messiah bring to this world? What would it look like? What would he say? What would he do? He was sent first off to bring hope. True hope. True light that no matter what happens in this world, there is always good. I've looked at someone, more than one person, who has tried to take their own life. I looked at a young girl who took so much Tylenol, her liver was gone. She was going to die. I'm trying to explain to her, this is not the end. There is light. What if I told you that no matter what happens to you in this world, there's hope? When the Messiah came, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. the light is meant to chase away the darkness. The Messiah, what's so great about him, he even overcame death. So there was no end. The path to salvation, the path to eternal life is through him. Well, you know what happens there? There's no sickness. There's no death. There's no loneliness. I can tell you for a fact everything I just said when the lights are off is not true. But there's a lot of people in the world that believe that. That's what the devil wants you to believe. And sometimes in order to realize how great the Messiah is, we need to go there. We need to feel what that's like. Now think about it in your heart. If I told you nothing happens when you die, does that feel right? No. What if I told you our lives don't actually end? If we believe in Jesus Christ, we continue on. We go to a place where we live on forever with other family members and friends. But there's always light in this world. This is the message that John brought. I want to tell you a story. It's from the Bible. One day there's a group of religious leaders that's in Jerusalem, and there's this huge ruckus, and they bring this girl out into the crowd. Everyone's screaming and yelling. They start telling everybody they caught her in the act of adultery, which back then, 2,000 years ago, was punishable with what? Yeah. Stoning. So they throw her into the middle of the crowd. Everyone backs out around her. Everyone's chanting, stone her. They all start picking up rocks. And they're not little rocks. You can't hurt somebody with a little rock. I mean, you got to pick up a rock. Heavy. Everyone's got one and they're yelling, and she's on the ground in front of everybody. The whole community's out there. And right before they start to throw rocks at her, one of the priests turns to Jesus. What do you think we should do? What do you say? I'm talking. Somebody read the Bible today. They say, Jesus, what should we do? What do you say we should do? Don't say anything. He doesn't say a word. Jesus is sitting there, describes it. He's sitting in the sand writing something with his finger. So he persists. What do you think we should do? The Bible, the Old Testament says we can stone her. Jesus eventually says, whoever is perfect, whoever has never sinned, throw your stone. Chuck it hard. Go for it. You know what each one of them does? They stop. They lower their heads, and they all start dropping their stones one by one. One thought after another, they start to walk away. Till everybody's gone, except two people. The young girl still on the ground, and Jesus. Now think if you were her, you just escaped a horrible death. But I'd argue her situation hasn't improved much either, because she doesn't know this guy. For all she knows, he's going to pick up a stone and just do it himself. And I can assure you, if she survives the day, the community's not really going to probably take her back, right? She's essentially vanished. She's on her own in an unforgiving world. What she did was unforgivable in their eyes. She was going to go experience death through a very horrible, painful way. And I can assure you, throwing rocks at someone like that doesn't go quickly. Repeatedly and repeatedly. At one point, Jesus looks up. He said, did nobody condemn you? Did no one throw rocks at you? She says, none. No one, sir. And he said something that shows why he's the light. He says, then neither do I condemn you. Now get up. He said, but leave your life of sin. Stop what you're doing. There's a better way. She went from a situation where there's no hope, no light. What do you think was going through her mind when she dies? When she was going to die, what was going to happen to her body, her soul? That was just going to be it for her. But Jesus gave her a second chance, a real chance. And she didn't deserve it. But that's why he came. And he said, but we got to remember, he also said, leave your life of sin. A lot of churches today, specifically the prosperity movement, they teach all the warm, fuzzy stuff. Everything's good, you're good, everything's okay, just put money in the offering plate, we're all going to be great. Blessings are going to keep coming. That's not the truth. Jesus said, you need to leave your life of sin. You need to stop doing that. There is sin. There is darkness. There is absolute hopelessness for some people. I've seen it. But why do they feel that way? How do you get there? You don't have the light. If you don't know that there's always another way. There's always forgiveness. Now, many times when we get to this point of the story, we really only focus on Jesus and the girl, which is great on the one hand. But you've got to remember, there's a whole community of people, even a whole bunch of religious leaders, who all admitted to what that day? They were sinners. Every last one of them. And because of their sin, they had no right to condemn anyone else. The whole lot of them were sinners. Every one of them was wrong. Even the holy guys with the fancy collars and the stuff. I got that in the closet too. I can put that stuff on. But I'm a sinner. Just like everybody here. Each one of those had a golden opportunity to throw some condemnation around, some heavy rocks. But they didn't. Because Jesus, not only does he bring light and forgiveness, but he brings responsibility and change. He does tell people we have to take ownership for what we do. Now, as far as the story goes, it actually kind of stops right there. It doesn't tell us what happened to any of those people. We don't know if any of the townspeople, the religious leaders, went any farther than just kind of reluctantly admitting that they were sinners. But wouldn't it be great if they did? What about the young lady? The story just stops there. It doesn't tell us what happens to her. How great would it be if a little later the disciples were down at the River Jordan baptizing people, and guess who shows up? She has hope. There's always a path, but it's up to her, it's up to us to follow that path. And that's what we have in this church. There's always hope. When I did a Bible study in the jail, that was the first Bible study I ever led. I don't recommend you do that. It's a tough one. It's a tough crowd, because you really got to have your stuff down. But it was good to learn from. But the hardest thing to do was convince some of those guys that had been in jail for decades. I mean, they'd been in jail longer than they'd been free. Does that make sense? They went into jail when they're pretty young. It's very difficult to get them to the point to understand that they too can be forgiven. That there is light and there is hope. Because there were some of those guys, when they got out, they had nothing. When they finally do get out, guess what? They just walk outside the jail and they have nowhere to go. They have no job, no money, no family. What do they have to live for? And that's what this world teaches them. But what does Jesus teach? What did John the Baptist come to tell people? There's light, there's hope, there's forgiveness. Jesus Christ is our hope. He is our salvation. And no matter how dark your world gets, or someone you know how dark their world gets, there's always hope. That can never be taken from you. As much as the devil will tell you that, it cannot be taken from you. And that's why we have these lights on Christmas. That's why we light them on the altar, to remind us of the light that Jesus, of what he is. And Jesus, he gave his life so all people would know that they have a chance. So as Christmas approaches, we light the candles more, and you go home, you have a wonderful time, you have the lights on the tree. Why do you have the lights on the tree? It's the same reason. To remind us of that light. With all the presents, the cookies, and the ham, the turkey, and the presents, and the more presents. Remember why we actually have this holiday. It has nothing to do with the big guy from Norway with the hat and all that kind of stuff, and the reindeer. It's nice, but it's not, trust me, it's not in the Bible. I've looked. It's about Jesus Christ. Even the word Christmas is a Christ Mass. The Catholics still use the word Mass. It means church service. So it's a Christ church service. That's what Christmas comes from. So it's always been about Him. That's the only reason to have it. All the other stuff is fine as long as it doesn't take the place of why we have this holiday. Because I have met people who have no light, who've not seen that light, and that is a horrible place to be in. You don't have to be there. So my job as a pastor, and the job of this church, is to always remind people that that light is real. It exists. It is for all people. That is an awesome message. So may the Lord bless you. May He be with you. May that light remain with you always. Amen.